Welcome to Queerly Speaking. I'm your host, Nat Jones, and together my wife and I will navigate the complex intersections of faith, identity, love, and resilience. In each episode, we'll share stories of heartbreak, healing, and hope from individuals who were told they didn't belong in the very spaces that shaped us. Welcome back to Queerly Speaking.
Good morning.
We are...
Should we release this at night? Good night. Good evening. Hope you had a great day.
Well, I don't think you're getting paid enough. So today we're going to be talking about tolerance.
I don't have any.
That has been true since the day I met you.
I said what I said.
Pussycat.
Good one. Good thing we don't have a comedy podcast.
Okay, wow. It's very hurtful. Anyway, so... I think this is an important conversation to have. You know, when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about this week and in the next coming weeks. We've told my story. We've told a part of your story. Mm-hmm. And we've told some other people's stories. I could keep going with this.
Yep. I see what
you're
doing there.
And now that, not that the story's over, but we've kind of gotten up. In the last episode, we kind of got a lot closer to like our present day life and where we're at and all of that. And I thought it would be important to talk about tolerance in the sense of, I'll try my best to explain this.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. So, you know, like there are, for example, with the way that my family grew up, they're like, gayness, not okay. Now you can't be a part of our lives, our family, our anything, right? Obviously, no tolerance there. But in the last decade, we've heard this word, probably much longer than that. We've heard this word tossed around quite a bit. And it's this idea that you don't have to agree with me, with my sexuality, but you at least have to tolerate it because I get to be me and you get to be you. I think for a very long time, I thought that was enough. And I'd like to talk a little bit today about kind of like where I'm at and how I got there and the journey of that. And then obviously you're going to talk about where you're at, where you've been for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
I think you were born that way. Yeah, honestly.
I was, but I will talk about that. So
yeah. So why don't you start? And then I'll kind of give my perspective as well.
Well, I think kind of to go back, and I know we've touched on this a little bit, but I think it's kind of important for this, like in the religious context, is I say this all the time. I say this all the time that I think one of the main things actually that my parents did a really good job of was kind of like approaching religion and really acceptance and all that stuff. And I mentioned that to say like it was never weaponized against me. So I have just, a very kind of basic, obviously, as everyone's learned through this, understanding of that, and what that means and all of that. And additionally, my mom in particular always was really supportive of people with different lifestyles. And it was very clear, like, what you do is not my business. Like everyone deserves to be happy, like live your life. My mom shares a story that I hope it's okay for my sister that I share this, but my sister that's 10 years older than me, growing up, one of her really good childhood best friends, who I actually do remember a little bit, was born with AIDS. And so my sister's 10 years older than me, so she was born in the 80s. This was like in the 90s. And actually, it like makes me really sad, actually. That my mom, I remember, told me the story later, and again, this is just kind of an example of what it was like growing up, but that like he would come over and my sister's friends would like be playing with me or babysitting me, and there would kind of be feedback on, like, is that safe? Like, you're letting him hold your baby and all this stuff. And my mom was like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, read the news. Like, that's not how you get this. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, so just kind of examples like that. And I think she's obviously learned, we've touched on this again, like my oldest sister is in an interracial marriage, and not to discredit her hardship at all. Like she shared with us that it was very, very challenging for them, and they were treated unfairly by our family and the community and all that. And it was horrible, but I think that helped. I was fortunate enough for that to help, like my parents kind of learn, acceptance once they came around. Obviously, again, not to diminish their story. So anyway, all of that's to say, like, she kind of fought that battle, and it was a little bit of a big deal for my mom because my dad's Jewish and my family was religious. kind of as we understood it to be. Not, they've obviously never met anyone like you, but anyway, all of that is to say that I feel like by the time I was like old enough to kind of be forming like my own thoughts and opinions, they had kind of gone through, you know, that's the benefit of being the youngest, I think, like gone through levels of learning and all that stuff. And we're, you know, much more tolerant. And I don't even like to use that word, accepting. They were really much more accepting of things. Like I wasn't nervous about telling my parents, really. I mean, a little bit, just because I was older and I thought like, oh, this is going to be like, you know, a curveball or whatever, but not in the sense that like I thought that they would like disown me or be freaking out or anything like that, which is obviously a blessing. But I think all of that is to say, like, I was lucky to kind of grow up seeing stuff like that. And I've really always been like, I'm 10 toes down on human rights. Like, I am not wavering. I think even the older I get, the more I really feel strongly about those types of things, and as does my family for the most part, which is nice to be supported. And then obviously the things that have happened in the past 5-10 years, I mean, again, like you said, that have always been happening, but really in the past 5-10 years have just made me really double down on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which I think is such a powerful thing. Like, I want that for our kids as well, that you show up in the world knowing how to like defend yourself and defend others and protect people and protect yourself. I did not show up in the world with that. But it's one of the things I love about you. And I think we've shared that on the podcast, that on our like third or fourth date, something like that, we had that conversation about human rights. And there were just like several things that we went through and we're like, well, what's your belief on that? Because I do think that I've met very few couples in my lifetime who've had different views on human rights that have made it long term. I know that there's like all this sometimes like on TikToks or on the news and all this different stuff. It's like, oh, well, this one person's this way, this person's that way. And it, they say it works. That would not work for me.
No.
That's not something I could ever.
We were both pretty clear about that.
No. And I literally have no context or even like capacity to understand how that works, depending on some of the issues, especially some of the issues of today. And
I just think like who has the time? Like, you know, again, I know we've talked about this, but I remember, you know, kind of some of my family members were like, Jesus Christ, Tammy, like, you know, lay off. Cause I'd be like, I mean, it wasn't that. It was like any first date I'm going on, really. Like, we're like, okay, what do you think about this? I'm like, I don't have time. Like, I'm not interested in wasting my time. And we had even on our first date touched on kind of, you know, broad levels of some things. And then it was like our third day where we really got into it. But it was very clear it was clear even before our first date, because we'd been talking for a while. But the point is, like, out of the gate, it was like X, Y, and Z is really important to me. And I don't have, I'm a Taurus, so I don't have any patience. And
excuse me.
Bless you. I don't really have patience, and I am extremely stubborn. And that could be, you know, fine. There are some areas I have room for improvement on that, I guess. But what I believe is not, and how I live my life is not one of them. And I'm not interested in opening my circle to people who need that.
Inner circle. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
Because
I would say inner to medium, really, for me.
Yeah. No, we talk about this quite a bit, because my unhealthy tendency has always been to allow people closer who can be harmful even in the way that they think and they feel. And I think that was a learned behavior very early on in my life, because if I didn't let people in who maybe didn't agree with me or didn't I was like so split growing up anyway, right? Because I'm struggling with who I am, and internally there's this battle of like, you're not good enough, you're because you struggle with this, and then everybody around me is repeating the same thing, like it's a tape that never gets turned off. So I'm really struggling today. Usually you're the clumsy one.
Okay, Jesus.
Sorry,
I was going to make a lighthearted joke, and you just ran me over with the bus.
So sorry. As I got older, obviously, and I came out, it's been quite the journey to undo a lot of that behavior and that belief system. And my sister and I were just talking about this the other day, because I'm not going to say for 1 second that I still don't sometimes struggle with this. I've come a very long way. And when I say struggle, I mean letting people say things to me that other people would not allow them to say to them. Or they definitely wouldn't say it twice.
We have a good story about that.
Yeah. But sometimes I do. And the more that I examine it, there's something, we're going to share this on a different podcast with a couple of people that we're going to have come on a discussion, about what crazy shit people say to you when you're going through your fertility journey. And, but that was more of a recent example for me. Someone said something to me that was just literally outrageous. Like, you would never say that to a normal straight person.
You should never say that to fucking anyone.
Well, I agree, but this person,
sorry, this is like rage bait because we're not saying what it is, but
you would just never say it. And I think because for so long, like, part of my strategy, even with my family, was when they would send me Bible verses and like all of this different stuff. Like, with any piece of hope that I could see that we'd ever have a relationship in the future, I would just let them do whatever. Yeah. And because that glimmer of hope was like way more important than anything else. It was more important than my confidence, more important than my inner life. And you start to realize, I had no idea at that time, like, how detrimental that was, because what it does is that it takes that tape that I've turned off inside my own head, that you're not good enough, something's wrong with you, you shouldn't be, you know what I mean? All of that stuff. And then it puts it on play again. And then I start struggling with how I dress and how I look, and I criticize my body to the 10th degree. And I will be honest with you that many people do not know this about me. It's not something I share very often. I actually only think probably you and my therapist know. But I have to be really, really careful. When we started doing this podcast originally and one of my family members lashed out, it took me days to get myself back to a place where, like, was able to turn off the tape. I could look at myself in the mirror and be like, I love her, and she's awesome, and she's good looking, and beauty looks 100 different ways, and I can do and look and believe and all of the things however I want. So all that to say, that's the context for oftentimes how I approach a lot of situations that this like crazy shit people say to me. And I think because I've always, since the time I was young, people have always been very, very open to me. People would come to me and tell me things that like no one else knew. And I value that a lot. I appreciate that. I hold those things really closely and protect and trust. And I consider that a really special part of things that gifts that people give me. So I think that's an element to it as well. People just feel really comfortable where people do not say shit to you.
Yeah, no, I don't think I give them the impression that they're welcome to do so. And I could share a follow-up story.
Yeah,
about
go ahead.
Kind of our Thanksgiving thing, but I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But I just want to say, I think it's kind of related to this because, and again, to go back, I think I want to give credit to my upbringing for my acceptance for things. But I also want to give, again, to go back to my oldest sister is a perfect example. Like, I get those things because my siblings are older, and particularly my oldest sister, like, kind of fought that battle and laid the groundwork for me. So it's not that it was without.
Yeah.
And
to her credit, she chose her own family. Like, she chose her husband and their daughter. Well, their daughter wasn't born at that point, but like, I just respect her so much because she didn't, at least the way she like tells us and we listen to the stories and all that, she didn't literally second guess herself one time. No. She was just like, no.
Through the pain, yeah. So
she chose her family.
Anyway,
herself.
I just say that to say, like, I'm lucky to have kind of reaped the benefits from that. But I think it's interesting where when you grow past that, like, I've always kind of had this base level of acceptance and, non-judgmental. Like, again, by the time that I was like old enough to really remember, like, race was like a non-issue because, my sister and my brother had dealt with everything to kind of get everyone like, on the ship or whatever. And, but then it's interesting, like, you go away to college and the older I get, the more it's like, that's not enough for me. Like, I've surpassed my parents and honestly, many of my family members now. It's like, it's not enough for me that it's okay with you and that you're okay with our inner circle. Like, that's the bare minimum. Like, I need you to be going above and beyond. I need you to be voting. I need you to be active. I need you to be speaking about it. Like, and if you're not, that really gets my blood going.
Yeah. Especially when someone's like, I fully support you, but did not vote in any way.
Right. I'm like okay. So anyway, both of us, like, we don't really, this is not a political podcast. We have plenty to listen to about that. I think it's obvious, where our thoughts are, but
I try my best not to.
Yeah, me too. I just think it's important to kind of say that, like, my point is, like, that's really where I am right now. Like, I want to see you put your fucking money where your mouth is. I want to see you put your behavior where your mouth is in every way. Like, and I say it's not political because it doesn't just stop there. Like, even if you do vote the way I want you to, but you don't do anything else, like, that's not really, there's more to do that. So that's not where it stops. Like, I think we know people, well, it's confusing and that's probably a topic for another episode, but I know that we know people that we love that do vote differently than us, but then live the way we would want. So it's all very interconnected, but, intertwined, but
yeah, it is.
My point being,
very convoluted.
Yeah, thank you. My point being that I expect it to go beyond just opinions of people's inner circles, and kind of the story I was going to say that we'll share is just recently for Thanksgiving, we went home to we went to Florida. I guess that's home kind of for you. Technically, it's birthplace for me, but anyway, so we go there. Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday. We go there to see your sister and my sister, my oldest sister. Excuse me, live there and their families. So we get this Airbnb. We're all staying there. My mom comes with my aunt. We're like, okay, this is going to be great. This is kind of our family holiday with everyone on that side. We're going to have Christmas with my sister here. So we kind of split, when you get married, that's what you have to do, right? So we're looking forward to it. So we go there and we get this big Airbnb. Nat plans the whole thing. Blah, 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 blah. It's fine-ish. Okay, adjacent with the family vibes. There's always going to be.
Pretty normal.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty normal. My family is like big personalities. That's really all I can say. Everyone's always like yelling if they're happy. They're yelling if they're mad. It's just like a lot going on. But kind of comes to a head because my mom makes a comment, says something to me in front of you and Anna. So it's like, okay, we have, that's like my new family, right? Like you guys are my family. You're obviously my family. We're here. My mom is well aware of your family situation and all that. So there's a lot of dynamics at play. And my mom lives in Mississippi. You may be asking, why the fuck? That's a great question. And her relatives that are there, notice the distinction. They're not my family members. They're her relatives that are there, with the exception of my one cousin who's very kind. Anyway, they are not tolerant nor accepting nor anything. My mom is
against.
Yeah, super against it all. And I'm like, okay.
Probably couldn't explain what being gay is, but they're very against it.
Right. Big feelings about that. So my mom has made kind of a few comments to me in the past, more than I would care to know or care to hear about, well, so-and-so said this, but I said blah, 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 blah. I told them not to say that or whatever. And I know that her intent is to, well, actually you tried to help me see this. Like, her intent is to show that she's coming to my defense, I guess. But I'm really like, I don't give a flying fuck what these people have to say. So why are you telling me this? So anyway, the same kind of situation erupts on the last day of our trip. And I freak the fuck out, for lack of a better word. I absolutely lose my mind. And I didn't speak to my mom for the rest of the trip. We were there for like, 2 or 3 more days. Mm-hmm. I didn't say a word. At one point she's like, I wish we could just talk. And, I do kind of feel bad now, but I was like, no, you don't. Promise you that's not what you want. Because it's better for everyone if I keep my mouth shut right now and we just get through the next couple days. So we don't speak. We come back home, don't speak. I'm big on like, I love yous and things because I think you just never know. My mom's 70. She's not a spring chicken. If she texts in the group chat or whatever, like I do say love you too because, she is my mom. I need to have that. But otherwise we're not really having any conversation. Mm-hmm. A couple months go by and I finally have conversation with her and, she's like, well, you didn't let me explain. And I'm like, I'm not interested in an explanation from you. If, and I basically said, I'm like, you're not living up to my standard of what it would look like to defend us and support our life, because I'll tell you fucking for free that if someone said something hateful about someone I loved in front of me, we don't have children yet, but I can only imagine that. But even my friends, anyone, you would never open your fucking mouth to me again.
A lot of F-bombs this morning.
I'm sorry, but this is, I feel passionate. Like, you're not, hopefully everyone's using their AirPods at work, but you know what I mean? Like, you're going to say something one time to me and you're never going to say it again. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to make it clear. So I'm thinking, like, as my mother, are you sitting there passive? Like, you're letting these comments come because you want, she's like, well, I don't want to get in a fight. I don't care. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I think she finally kind of came around to understanding. But the point of all of that was, this is my family. And if you are interested in being a part of my family, that holds responsibilities. We have responsibilities just as being good people. But we have responsibilities to protect our family members and to protect what's right or wrong, my expectation goes beyond that you're not saying it.
Yeah.
My expectation is that you are shutting it down in rooms that you're in.
Yeah.
And you were making that clear.
Yeah.
And as we go on to hopefully expand our family and do all that stuff one day, it's, and I said that too. I'm like, you will not be sitting at my table and let something slip that will make my child question, is this okay? Or what does grandma feel about this or whatever? Like,
no.
And the
It's not
practice
gonna
is
be an
over.
option.
First of all, you're 70. And second of all, we've been together for 4 years. So the practice time, we're done with practice. We're in full season right now.
Well, and I do think that's why I think this conversation is so important, because that's one extreme.
Right.
Or not even extreme, right? But that's how you genuinely feel about it. And I think how I've always looked at it is, but what about all the people in the middle? Like,
For
what
sure.
about like the person who's born a daughter who transitions, becoming male, and they were, your brother, your sister, right? Do you think that you would never accidentally slip up and refer to them as how you had known them previously in your life?
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't mean, I say things like that to say, like, there has to be some level when things change.
Right.
There has to
Agreed.
be some level of grace. And I think that there's a big difference in someone who refuses to acknowledge that an individual is now saying, or is now saying, but is saying like, no, I am genuinely like male.
Right.
And
This
you
is
need
who
to
I
refer,
am.
this is who
Yeah.
I am, and you need to refer to me as such because it's respectful. And like, those are totally two different conversations. And so I think that's the part that gets a little convoluted, because like what you're referring to is either get on the bus or get off.
Right.
Because we're all moving in this direction. We believe that everyone has an equal opportunity to say who they are, who they want to love, and how they want to live their life, as long as it is not murderous and harmful.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you get to choose that. So, and we're all moving in that direction. So if along that journey, someone, especially much older, who grew up in a very ignorant time frame in the world, has a little bit of a harder time adjusting, but is putting effort in and is really making
The effort is the big thing.
like that, I have a lot of grace for that, because it's like, okay, you've had 70 years of living your life a certain way, and now we're asking you to change it, right or wrong. All I'm saying is, like, I think it's a little bit gray, right? There's an in between.
It's about, I think, if the efforts are there.
For sure.
And I do have grace. I mean, going back to my mom and my family, and you really do, especially. I mean, I'm again, like, just kind of an inherently like all or nothing, like not that patient kind of person, but you've really helped me with that a lot, and seeing, and even Anna has made comments where, my mom or my parents who are like obsessed with you. I mean, like, you would have thought our wedding was like, I didn't even know, like the best day of their fucking lives. Like, genuinely, they were like so happy. I don't question their support in any way, which is, a blessing in and of itself. But I think always, really with anyone in my life, I'm just kind of always expecting more or whatever. I just hold them to, people to a higher standard.
As you should.
You and Anna have both helped with making comments like, that's an effort, or, kind of saying like, well, they're doing their best, or they're, they're learning or whatever. And
They're
it's
taking
true.
steps.
It's true that they are, but yeah, sometimes that's not enough for me.
Well, but I think that that's okay, right? Like, that's where there's different levels, and a lot of that grace for me sometimes can be very unhealthy. Sometimes it can let people just mow right over me and not take up for myself, because I, even recently when that thing was said to me, I did not realize how bad I was struggling with that afterward. Because sometimes if you're not careful, it can turn your boundaries inside out. And instead of like, sometimes I think in certain circles in my life, I work hard to be a part. Actually, man, I'm like, now that I'm saying that out loud, I'm like, oh my God, do I? I was going to say work hard to be a part of the boys club, but I'm like, oh my God, gross. It's not so much that, it's just like,
Well, it's just kind of the nature of, I feel like, a dynamic when most of your friends, again, we've touched on this, like, are
not my
heterosexual.
friends. No, not my friends.
Oh, I thought you were saying how we, okay.
No, not my friends. I'll get to that. I mean, in the outer circles, like work and nonprofits and this and that. Like, I'm much more aware. Like I am very careful in a professional setting to not upset the apple cart. Never have I ever. And
I've never heard that phrase in my life. What does
never
that
have I
mean?
ever. I don't know. They
What
just
does
say
that
that in the
mean?
South. I'm not sure. It just means like throw things off balance. Like,
One apple goes and then it's like,
right. You know,
fucking
like,
hilarious.
yeah, I don't know. My mom always used to say it. And allergies are like,
yeah, you're not doing well. Thanks for coughing on me. I really appreciate that.
I'm going to cut that out. I feel like I'm having a hard time getting my thoughts out, but the point is like someone could say something to me and to maintain a level of professionalism, I just don't respond back.
Yeah.
And I think that's been okay because that's where I was at. But I have been listening to Jefferson Fisher a lot, and I'm going to tag him in the bottom of this episode so you guys can listen as well. Phenomenal. He's an attorney and communication expert, and he talks a lot about what to do when someone has either pushed a boundary or said something to you that is rude, because I have been finding myself then when I don't, like, now I've kind of like gone through these stages. Like I used to not say anything, and then I didn't say much, but it would bother me. And then I got to a point where like I'd just be angry. And it'd be like pretty apparent I was angry if I felt like someone was really like pushing my buttons and pushing something about my confidence, or like I have had some moments in the last year where I have snapped back hard and then I feel really guilty. And so I've been listening to him a lot because it helps like maintain your peace while also responding. And I've used this in my professional life. I'm using it in my personal life. I'm using it in kind of all of the in between. And it's been really, really helpful. But one of the things that he says to do is when someone says something to you that is rude or unhelpful or just mean, that you like pause and you would say, "Can you repeat that?" And he gives numerous examples of in really hot moments of debate and things he's litigating and all this different stuff, that oftentimes people will be mad enough to say it once, but when you ask them to repeat it, they often do not want to repeat it. And there is a reason for that, because it speaks to that they genuinely do understand that something is wrong with what they're saying.
Yeah.
And so I've been really trying to implement that, especially. And I think it's been helpful so far, because I get in this place in my life where I'm like, okay, where does grace then become unhealthy? Because here's all the grace I have. And I genuinely do have a lot of it for people who are learning, people who are changing. Yeah. I would sit with anyone and let them ask me every question under the sun if their intent is to learn. Sure. And their intent is to grow, and their intent is to understand something they haven't been exposed to. Shame on them for not being exposed to it. However, not everyone is. That's just the way the world works right now, unfortunately. And so I would spend any amount of time with someone who really genuinely wants to learn. And I value that a lot. I value that a lot. And so I think that that's also kind of a little bit, it convolutes it a little bit.
For sure.
But here's where I'm at with everything else. You won't be sitting at my table in my house, in my personal house, in my life, and anywhere close, saying anything that will make any member of my family feel that something is wrong, that they don't belong, or even really asking questions. That's really not the place to do that. If you're a person who's asking questions and wanting to learn, I will do that with you, but it won't be in my house. And I think this has become in the last couple of years, we've talked a lot about this. We've talked a lot about, and this is, I'm going to throw all these things to the same bucket because they're not the same, but we talked about sleepovers. How are we doing sleepovers with kids? And I feel really strongly about that. We've talked about like I don't feel comfortable with sleepovers ever. Yeah. Unless it's with people that we feel like are extremely safe. But anyway, that's just one of the things. But there are like just several things I feel really strongly about. One of them being is you don't get access to my house and our person. And I'm using my house like metaphorically, but also physically. Like you don't get access that close in if I can see in your life in any way that you are not supportive or questioning or or even this one's so tough because it refers to a couple of people, but even like passive. Because we're at a place in the world, and we have been for a long time. It took me a long time to get here too. That's why I think I have grace, because I also think about the way that I used to think, even being gay, And I think that the world does need love and grace and places for people to talk through things that are hard. Like, let's talk through. I'm not afraid of having a conversation about being gay. I'm not afraid of having a conversation about someone being trans and my beliefs on it. And if you don't agree, let's talk about it and tell me why. Because if you can understand anything from a different perspective, I think that sort of like reaching out our hand to one another is one of the most powerful things that we can do. But where you do that is really important. And I think that's one of the things that I've really come to settle on, is that we're not going to be doing that in my living room. We can do that somewhere else. Because my living room is a place where my kids and my wife and my family and our good friends get to come over, and their walls get to come down and their shoes come off, and let's just get me chill bumps. Like, that's a place that's supposed to be very safe, and that's something that is extremely important to me. And so I think that's a little bit of the difference, which is why sometimes with like an issue like with your mom, it hits a pretty strong chord. Because those are the types of people that are supposed to be
in our living room.
But sometimes they don't get to be.
Sometimes they need a timeout.
And it's building back trust and building back safety and building back the consistency of trust and behavior that will determine if someone comes back in. But I think that's really hard. And I think there are a lot of people out there who struggle with this like I do in this way, because there are people in your family who are very, very close. It's a brother, it's a sister, it's a mom, it's a dad. It's your boss. It's, you know what I mean? It's like people that are very interconnected to you all the time. What do you do with that? And how do you create safety and boundaries? And I think for the longest time, I was so afraid of losing relationship. And that's why I let people in that shouldn't be in. And deathly afraid of, loss is a pretty big trigger for me. So I think I'm pretty motivated by not having loss. But on the flip side of it, I was losing pieces of myself.
I was just going to say, then you get to a point where you're like, what is the loss, And
the loss was my own respect and my own dignity. And that's just like no longer an option. But it does beg to question, like, what do you do? There are a lot of people around the world in these types of situations with the people in their inner circles, with sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws, like, those types of situations are tough.
They are.
What are you going to be like? What are you going to do? Okay, you guys can all come to Christmas, but that sister-in-law, she has to stay home.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
And I think there's levels, like what you were saying, and especially in professional settings, it is hard. I have that all the time where some of my clients, I'm like, oh my God, please tell me you didn't just say that. And I can't always, I need my job to pay the bills. You know what I mean? Like, I can't always say exactly what I want to say, but just like what you said, like, that's not in our home. That's not our inner circle. But it is tough when it's, intertwined. People or, people don't feel the way that you want them to or show that. But where is their intention? Are they growing? Are they?
Well, it's hard because there are genuine people like right now that I love and respect. And I was having a conversation the other day, and in my in some of the professional settings that I'm in, it can get really political. And I actually never bring it up. I never really want to talk about it with anybody.
Protect yourself.
But a couple of people around me, they really like to bring it up. And they were talking, and I made the comment, because it's been brought up so many times at this point, it's like, oh my God, okay. I made the comment that we should never have to choose to vote between our humanity and our dignity and money. Those two things shouldn't be the ways that people are voting.
Also, I'm still waiting for my cheap eggs, so just let me know when those are coming.
Yeah. But it is oftentimes, especially recently, it was one of the things, right? It was in my opinion, the main thing. And this person was like, your humanity, how dramatic. And I'm like, how dramatic? Okay. And then went on to say, was referring to someone who they love and said, yeah, well, I'm going to change it up a little bit so it's not like super apparent, but along the context of, well, he likes to go by they, them, and he is just ridiculous and kind of dramatic, just like you, and talking to me, and he, after this
like
person
you just said
they like to be referred to as they, them, and then said, and the person that they're dating doesn't even have a GED because they're stupid.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. All right. And so I was a little bit of I don't actually think in comparison to now saying it out loud, I don't think it was actually that bad, but I was just like, do you mean they, them?
Good for you, honey.
Because it's just like, wow. Now this person is like much more outspoken and it makes their particular political beliefs like very, very known. Almost like they get like high off of it. It's kind of cultish in some ways. It's so strange in my opinion.
Weird.
Yeah. I mean, so it's like, so that happens on a Tuesday, right? And then on a Thursday, this person's like, I want to meet your family. I want to meet your family. Let's go out for happy hour. I want to meet your family. I want to do. And I'm like, you don't see how these things correlate? Because genuinely, I think this person really does support us and love us in their minds.
But then
in certain ways.
It's like one of those where it's like, because I know you, you know, like people are like, that's like people who say, it's like infamous, right? People are like, I can't be racist. My best friend is black.
Yeah,
or my
I'm
best
like,
friend
oh
is a
my
person
God,
of color.
shut
And you're
up.
like, literally shut the, what? I'm like, okay, that's not how that works. Like,
yeah.
and you might be because you said that. Like, you know what I mean? And
Right.
And I don't mean to say, I think we both don't. Like, we have so many conversations, you know, because we obviously have one experience. Even our experience in the queer community is so different from each other, so different from other couples.
Yeah, but we have privilege.
Right, that's what I was getting to.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. But yeah, exactly. So we both feel that way. Like, we oftentimes have to find ourselves being like, okay, I need to humble myself and I need to learn from an experience of a different person. I need to learn from, you know, people of color. I need to learn from, you know, people who have immigrated here. I need to learn from X, Y, people of other religious backgrounds, you know, X, Y, and Z. Like, we're not perfect by any means. I mean, growing to be better every day, but there's always something to learn. So we don't mean to say that. And I also think for both of us, I mean, you're not going to find like a rainbow flag in our house. That's not really going with the aesthetic here.
Well, yeah, mainly because you're an interior designer.
Right.
But.
Yeah. Sorry. But I don't need like, I also don't need people to be doing that. You know, like there's levels of everything, right? Like it's not my expectation
like when someone
that
shows
you're
up and they're like, oh, I'm supportive. I have
waving a
rainbows
flag.
everywhere.
Yeah. Like I'm not cutting you out of my life because you're not interested in going to Pride.
No.
You know, like honestly, I've never been there. Doesn't mean I don't want to, but you know what I mean? Like there are levels. Like obviously your things that you experience and the facets of your life, you're going to be more passionate about, right? Because that affects you directly. But we do expect people to be, all of my point is that, and it's like even in our postings on social media, and like we talk to, you know, two of our really good friends are kind of doing the same thing on their social media, like just to bring awareness to like, we're literally the same as every couple.
Yeah.
I've maybe taken the trash out twice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Nat does the landscaping. Like, we're doing the same shit. But I bring that up to say, like, you know, where people like the person that you're mentioning, it's like, they probably think like, oh, like we're palatable to them. You know, I think we are because we dress a certain way. We present ourselves a certain way. Like, I mean, you dress differently than most of the women at your work for sure, but still like.
But it can be tolerated.
Right. And it is genuinely how you want to. Like, you don't stifle yourself in that way, which is fantastic.
No, I don't get two shits.
Just my point is, I think with people like that, they find us palatable.
Yes.
And, you know, I've had people say that, like, not about being gay, but they're like, oh, but you're like, you know, not a crazy blank. I'm like, well, I disagree.
Well, and what's interesting is, like, there's even, like, people who we've gone out with that are other not our other, as if there's only one. There's another gay couple that we're really good friends with, some of our best friends. And literally someone at the table, they're not in our inner circle, they said, well, I understand the dynamic and the vibe between Nat and Tammy. I don't understand the vibe between you guys. Who's more masculine?
Oh, yeah, because everyone's like, who's the man? You're like,
oh my God. Like, that's the whole fucking point. There's not a man. No one in this relationship wants a penis.
No man in sight. But the point of that being, like, that's where, again, it goes, like, expectations of our family members, expectations of our people. It's like, I want it to be a non-issue for you.
Yeah.
Like, in any way. I don't want you to be like, well, I don't know. Like, it would be fine. You know, people are like, oh, well, if it's not legal, like, what about you guys? I'm like, what about the millions of other couples? Like,
yeah,
you know, I'm glad that your intention is with us because you're close to us. But sometimes when you get the impression to people that you're like, oh, they would be fine if like no other gay people moving forward could get married as long as like we were okay because they know us. And you're like, that's not how it works. Like, that's not what I'm asking for.
No,
I'm asking for it to be like a non-starter. I don't need you to be going to rallies with me. That's fine. But I need it to not just be because we're palatable to you. Like, we both wear makeup, so you're like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, or people are like, well, I don't like when people shove it in my face. I'm like, I like when you shove it in my face.
Oh my God. Plus, there's like literally no gay person. Oh my God, babe. There's literally no gay person around. I'm not. I'm leaving that so that everyone understands what it's like to be with you. I'm just kidding. Who wouldn't love that? Anyway, there's not a gay person around who's trying to make anyone else gay.
Because if we could, we would, and everyone would be gay.
My God, babe. Not helpful. I'm just saying, like, one's trying to make anybody gay. We're just trying to survive. We're trying to be okay ourselves. We're trying to live in a world that is loving and kind, and that we have these same equal rights. By the way, that according to the Constitution, that we should all have. All people.
Yes, circle it back, babe.
So I'm just saying, it's like, there is the craziest shit on the news right now, and it's like the fear mongering and all this different stuff. It's like 1%, I believe, 1% of the entire athlete population are trans athletes.
Oh yeah, they're taking over.
And it's like you're talking, the way people talk about it, it's like the zombie apocalypse. You've got trans athletes coming at you in every direction. Like, watch out. And it's like, what are you talking about?
I know. Well, that's what they're like. Oh, now I forget what population of Gen Z it is that is like some part of the queer community, but you know, it's like higher than it has been before. And they're like, see?
Oh yeah, you're making them gay. It's like, really? Or are they just safe to come out now?
Right. And it's
because back during the Stonewall days, people weren't coming out. I can tell you that.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to get arrested or murdered
get
or
me
whatever.
Heated up about this shit. I'm telling you, because people were dying.
Right.
So yeah, it's great. Thank you for that. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Yeah, there's more kids. What is it? 1 in 4 kids, I think, was the last stat that just came out.
But it's pretty high. I can't remember if it's that high.
Yeah, you know what? They've been there the whole goddamn time.
Right.
Stupid.
And also,
sorry, I shouldn't say stupid. That wasn't very kind. I take that back. Apologize.
Also, they're so open. Like, we've talked about this with some of our friends, and, you know, our nieces and nephews are like kind of teenagers or in their 20s and stuff. And it's like, they're like, you know, we're this one day, we're the next thing the next day, because it's not that fucking serious. And they can express themselves however they want. And it's, again, it's like that age, which is kind of refreshing. It's like sort of a non-starter, like the need to come out and have a, you know, sit down, like everyone's at the dinner table and we're like, I have something to tell you, like so serious. It's just not really there anymore.
Yeah. It's like, cool, but did you bring the mac and cheese?
Yeah, exactly. That's like my greatest hope, that we'll have kids and they'll just show up with a partner and it'll be like, oh, like roll the dice. Like, what's it going to be? You know, who are they? Like, we don't know.
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Unless they're shitty and I'm going to kick them out. But
yeah, it doesn't have to be a conversation.
Yeah, no.
And sexuality is fluid. It's like we've just made it this thing. But I honestly think that the gayness in society is very similar to kind of like end times in the church. People have weaponized it in order to control and create fear and do all of this other shit, where for the most part, I've not even met a lot of people who voted differently than I voted, who are like super against me.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a lot more going on here, people.
Definitely. But that's why those personal conversations, like you said, are so important, because you're right. I mean, we know, obviously, it's very clear that homophobia exists and there are people that are like that, but just having more conversations to, you know, bring us together and all of that.
Yeah.
And if there's an opportunity for us to have a conversation to bring you closer to us, we're open to doing that. But I will take that same conversation to push you right out the fucking door if you present yourself in such a way that deserves it.
Yeah, we will. We will for sure. And you know what? I just have to say on the record that I thank God for the courage and the bravery of people like in situations like Stonewall, because we wouldn't be where we are today without him. Let's just all take a lesson from history and take a moment, and let's not make crazy assumptions about things that we don't understand. It's okay that you don't understand it. It's okay that we might not understand many things. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Ask questions to understand it. Maybe think about it from a different perspective that's not your own set of perspectives from your 1% of the world that you've experienced as a white privileged person. And I say that for myself as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Back to what you were saying before, like the more I grow, the more that I understand how privileged our life is. Because if I was in the same situation, but I was a different color, like I think that it could have been very, very different. And saying that doesn't take away from me in my experience in life.
For sure. Just to your point, it's like everyone comes at something from a different perspective of understanding. And also, like, it's okay that some things are not for you to understand.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't need to understand the inner workings of other people's marriage. I don't really want to know why you swiped right on the guy holding the fucking fish, but you did. So good for you. You know what I mean? Like, it's not, I don't get to go to every heterosexual couple and be like, no, if God really wants the two of you together.
I can tell you about how much you guys are screaming at each other. He may not.
So it's like, we don't really need that. We're not looking for approval. Most queer people are not. We're just looking to just kind of exist. It's like I said, it's just okay that some things are not for you to understand. That's why I don't really understand when people are like, and not even, like gay marriage, but people are like, I don't believe in XYZ. What do you mean believe in it? Like, it's not the fucking Easter bunny. Like,
yeah.
Okay, don't get gay married then. You're not into gay marriage, don't get gay married. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
What's that got to do with you? You're not even on the B list for our wedding, so I don't really care if you don't believe in it. You're not coming.
Yeah. And if you want to talk about how people often say, don't get gay married, right? It's a good one. I love that. But what about our children? What about our children? Like, what about them, Susan? How do you know how many pedophilia situations come out? No, they don't, mother.
She's going to throw the microphone at the screen.
Yeah, don't even throw that shit at me. I have there are certain things I have zero tolerance for, and that is one of them. That's the biggest load of shit I've ever heard in my life. If you think that, do some research. Look up how many pedophiles happen to be white males.
Or in the church.
I mean, buddy.
And they could be anywhere. We're not saying all church people.
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying close your mouth. That's what I am saying.
Or when people are like, well, will your children be gay? I'm like, let's just think about the logic here. If we have a son, we're probably making them increasingly straight because they're going to hear me talk about how hot Demi Lovato is like every day, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, she is. Boom. We just made a straight guy. You're welcome. Speaking
of that, I have to give my best friend a shout out because he sent me, I don't know why he was on Reddit. I don't even know how he came to find this.
He's probably looking to better himself because he's so noble.
That's just the person that he is. But he sent me, he's like, Nat, read this Reddit thread. It was this 20-year-old and who had grown up with two moms, and he gets on there and he's like, ask me any question you want. So people were asking, and this is where I'm like, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. People are curious. People want to know. And it's like, those are the conversations. Let's have those.
Right.
But they're like, well, did you ever feel like something was missing because you didn't have a dad? And he's like, no, I didn't know any different. And all of the love and support and respect that I could ever have wanted was there. So I didn't feel like anything was missing. And then people are just asking all these questions, right? And then he talks about towards the end, he goes, I actually think being raised by two moms made me a way better partner because it's one of the first things when I go on a date that I tell the girl because automatically they feel at ease with me. They feel safer. And I thought that was such an interesting perspective. And then so I read all the way through it. And then I texted my best friend. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm crying. And he goes, I know your kid's going to be the best motherfucking kid we've ever seen. It's been in my life. I've dealt with a lot of tolerance, like we're talking about today. I've dealt with a lot of like very anti who I am type situations. So there haven't really been a lot where people have gone out of I really can't recall many people who have really gone out of their way to be like, here's an example where you showing up in the world is really positive and we really want it.
Yeah.
And I also think coming from one of my male best friends was extremely powerful as well. I know you listen. When we look at the percentages of people who listen to the podcast, whether it's women or men, like the men is a lot lower. I mean, he is bringing in that stat every single week when he's listening. You know who you are. I appreciate you so much. And you really don't have any idea. Even like the smallest things like that really mean the world.
Yeah, they really do. I think the summary of kind of all of this with what we're saying, we opened it with, we're going to talk about tolerance. We're kind of throwing that word in the trash. I think we're done with it. Yeah. We're done with the T word, except for Tammy. We're done with it. I'm not really interested in that. No. I am working really hard, where I'm sure I've shown it in the past, to replace that with acceptance and support.
Yeah.
In every way that I can.
Tolerance is not enough.
Even for things I don't understand, I will commit to working harder to understand them.
Yeah, me too.
Doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything necessarily, but you're committed to efforts to understanding and understanding people's different perspectives and experiences. And I'm no longer tolerating your tolerance.
No. To be fair, I don't know that anyone who's really a tolerant type person is probably listening to this. But true. Blast it out. People need to hear it. The world needs to hear it. So yeah, we're going to throw some tolerance in the trash can and say, fuck it.
Yep. Fuck it.
When I was also listening to the communication podcast and the book that I'm reading, he was also talking about how professionally you should curse less because it shows too much emotional. And then I thought, well, I'm not in a professional setting today. So
do you think you wanted to share that stat with me before I started today, or you're just going to wait and see how many times I did it today?
I love it. Thanks for listening, guys.
The passion is. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, and this is an emotional podcast. That's why I can be in other areas of my professional life, I can hold it together quite well, because here I get to say it like it is.
Amen.
You don't want to hear it? Don't listen.
But please do. Please listen every week, every Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, guys. I hope this was helpful or at least entertaining. And we love you guys. We'll see you next week.
Have a good week.